You're very welcome back. Now, whether you're puzzled by poetry, agitated by algebra, or feeling clueless about comprehensions, well, these TikTok teachers have you covered.
Joining us now to take a deep dive into the Maths, Irish and English Leaving Cert papers are English teacher with the Dublin Academy, Gavin Cowzer, founder of Breakthrough Maths, TJ Hegarty, agus Moontour Gaeilge, Danielle O'Connell. Great to have you on this morning, guys.
Thanks so much for
Perfect time to be talking about this between the weather and 3 weeks to go till exams. So, Gavin, we'll start with you and with the English paper 1. It's the very first paper that all the Leaving Cert students will sit on the 4th of June. Now, we know the age-old saying, you can't study for English paper 1. Is this true?
Yeah, no is the short answer. It's not true. Like, it's a nice get out of jail kind of free card, you know, like say, oh, listen, you have to be flowery and creative. And it's simply untrue. I was loving the alliteration, by the way, guys, at the start. That was
we were all night doing that.
H1 straight away.
Nothing whatsoever to do with producer Lou.
No, listen, it was just, it was so organic. But no, look, the English paper 1 is a super repetitive paper. You know, we could say that if we were going to use one word to describe the Leaving Cert, English Leaving Cert anyway, it would be repetitive. So the questions that come up in terms of the question A, super predictable. The texts that come up tend to be similar texts kind of every single year. Extracts from novels, extracts from short stories. So that has a narrative and aesthetic core. So if we are kind of stylistically on point, we can absolutely prepare. And I know we were talking off air there a second ago about the essay, 25%. It's the most important part of the English Leaving Cert. I know we'll probably talk about poetry a little bit later and things like that. But the essay, we tend to get questions on the personal essay. There tends to be 1 or 2 of those on the paper, the short story, and then maybe a speech-debated discursive task. So what I would say to the students is play to your strengths. You know, if I was sitting the Leaving Cert again, you know, 20th year repeating, you know, feeling positive about it, I would never gravitate towards a short story because that's me personally. Yeah. I would gravitate towards the speeches and the debates because I feel that's where my strengths lie. So,
and your teacher will guide you in which is your strength.
Absolutely.
Really,
at this late stage, I mean, we should have been practicing and prepping and looking at past paper questions because even the question titles themselves are super repetitive. So if we're saying, you know, we can't study for English, I mean, the President of Ireland task has come up twice over the last 6 years. They tend to ask about people and places a lot within the questions as well. So there's definitely things that we should be at this late stage.
They're not stuff and just change names of
that's
what you can do. But talk about paper 2 now, because that's, I suppose, a bit more predictable in such a way that you can prepare for. You've the seen poetry, the unseen poetry. You've what else is there now? The comparative, the single text, all that sort of stuff.
And then King Lear as well, so Shakespeare,
King
Lear. King Lear is great.
I did, for the first time. It's brilliant. But how, like, have you any predictions? Because obviously the stuff that came up last year isn't going to come up this year, so you can kind of look ahead to that.
I know, and like, geez, the question we get asked as English teachers, I'm sure English teachers up and down the country were plagued nearly from the start of 5th year about what poets are going to come up, this kind of thing. Whereas, first of all, we recognise that poetry is only a little over 10%, you know, it's 12.5% of the paper, but I understand that that's where we want the predictions, but... Yeah, like paper 2, I would argue as well. Again, we play to our strengths. Like the poetry, like I'd say up and down the country, people are expecting kind of the likes of Boland to come up. Sylvia Plath, you were saying about what happened last year. Plath and Dickinson showed up last year.
Oh, how depressing.
I know. That's a tough old paper. You want to be going into
and the weather wasn't even great for them last year. My God.
I know. Geez, the weather at the minute, it's so impossible. Could you imagine being 17, 18 again trying to study in this weather? So yeah, no, look, we'd expect since COVID, and they've moved from a 4-poet paper to a 5-poet paper. Predictions are less the holy grail than they used to be. But no, certainly we'd probably expect 2 female poets again, and maybe, hopefully, Kavanagh, and maybe Hail Mary of T.S. Eliot. I'm a big fan of T.S. Eliot.
Excellent. So. Now, when I suppose this is an apt segue, because when I was going to my maths paper, an Emily Dickinson poem probably came to my mind. If I could kindly stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. If I could not stop for death, sorry, he kindly stopped for me, because I was feeling so fatalistic going into my maths. I was terrified of it, TJ. Terrified.
Go with that.
I'm telling you. But yeah, it's also mammoth paper 1, paper 2, and it weighs so heavily on people's brains.
It does, yeah. I think maths is the one that, I think it was the last year or year before, where there's a paper 1 where people just came out in tears. It was one of the worst papers ever, and I think that's like PTSD, or there's like a fear in people right, like from day dot going into it. And maths is a bit harder because you also have the 25 extra points, and maybe that puts an extra pressure on students as well. They're competing to get in, and the maths course is huge. 35 topics of maths to study across 2 papers across 5 hours to do it.
Okay. Oh, goodness. And so I remember coming out from maths papers and asking people, what you get for this, what you get for that, and then sweating if I heard something different to what I gotten. But is it more about how you work it out? Or like, how should people kind of approach it? And if they start thinking that they're doing it wrong halfway through, should they go back and start again?
Yeah, that's actually really, really important. And if everyone's at home listening to this, like, the best advice I ever got during any exams is cut the app. So don't be listening to people going into the exam, go into the exam and leave. Don't be out talking with people in the app saying, I didn't get that, I couldn't get it, what you get for this, because it doesn't matter. You just got to get to the next exam. That is really, really important. In terms of the actual maths itself, like, look, if you are like, one of the most important things you can probably take away is that the answer is almost irrelevant. You got to focus on step 1, step 2. You get your marks for the method. So even if you're going wrong in an answer and you're like, this won't work out, keep going. Just keep showing what formula you're using. Start subbing in. Show every single step. Make it clear in loads of space. Use up all the exam paper. Use it all up. Paper's for free. Go and use it, and you'll get more. And that's where you'll garner your marks.
Okay.
Oh
Jeez,
my
that's
God.
good to know, isn't it?
Yeah, that is good. Maths, I still have nightmares over pi, and that's not even a theorem, for God's sake. I know. Now, we move on to Irish now, and I have to say, that's one of the things I think I might be a bit traumatised by my Leaving Cert, because the Leaving Cert oral really absolutely baffled me, because I couldn't understand the dialect. A lot of it was in Donegal Irish, and I was absolutely, that was gone. I'm from Cork, like. But the first part of it, of course, is the oral and the essay. Is that right?
Yeah. So paper 1 is only the oral and the essay, and I suppose, look, you're not the only one. A lot of students are really terrified by the Cluas Tishkent.
The what now?
That's Cluas.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
So it goes like by levels of difficulty, and I suppose, yeah, everyone's a bit afraid of like the Donegal Irish. But like, what I would say, you know, a lot of students are like, how do you study for the Cluas Tishkent? Because it is one of those sections where definitely all over Ireland students struggle with it the most. But I suppose my best advice would be, you know, no more than what TJ was saying, like the papers, to practice in the papers. You know, you can be géisteach beidir le podcréile how to gael, or, you know, for the cúpla focail. Or, you know, so, but it does go up by levels of difficulty. But what I would tell students is, Quid B is where I see a lot of students go down in marks, because they're not used to the layout of it. Because in Quid A, you hear it twice. You hear Fógra Hain twice and then Fógra Dó twice. But with Quid B, it's a conversation. So that kind of, you know, throws them a bit. So when they hear it the second time, it's actually split up in the middle for them. So they'll hear the first 3 questions and then they'll break, and then they'll hear the next 3 questions. So even to give themselves that time to know when they hear that beep, OK, first 3 questions are done, just focus on that. And then they would hear the second beep, OK, next 3 questions to focus on. But
The beep. Yeah.
It's so loud.
It's really famous, I think.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, it'll go down in history. I always find that with Donegal Irish, it's not the most difficult dialect. It's just the one that people maybe have the less experience with. So it's just about getting it on. That's all it is.
So
it's
just
not
listen to it more on podcasts and interviews and stuff like that, just to be ear ready.
That's all it is. It's just you haven't heard it as much. Paper 2 in Gaeilge is considered the information paper, where they don't mark you as much on the gramadach and your actual Gaeilge, but more on the information you have. So what predictions do you have, Danielle, for the prose and the filioch, the poetry?
So, and I suppose that's a really good thing for students to know, like their keywords, so their uckerfuckle, all of that is going to get them the marks on paper 2. So if I was studying higher level, I would be looking at Mugrosa on Spalpin Fónach and Culscara. Now, Culscara did come up on the 2024 deferred paper last year, but they are kind of shaking things up on the Irish paper, so it is really hard to know like what they're going to do. And then for the prose, look, Anganórod has never come up. Yeah. Is it going to come up this year? I don't think so. I think we're just going to leave it and leave it be. So I would be focusing on Herlama book and Ushni Tiernanog this year, because, you know, I suppose we're getting to the end now, students are starting to panic, and what I would say is, even if they have the 2 studied, one of them is guaranteed to be there. So if you have 2 studied really well and even only one of them comes up, you're covered. You know, so it's just trying to, I suppose, minimise the work for students at this late stage, because, you know, they start to spiral a bit. So anything we can do to minimise the stress for them, I think, is best.
Absolutely, Gerby Lamagat. That's all we have time for right now. I know you're going to be coming back with Gavin Cowzer, TJ Hegarty and Danielle O'Connell. Gerby Lamagat for that. Our Leaving Cert panel will be hanging around to answer your questions, so do get in touch on 0896 111 111. And if you still get those dreaded Leaving Cert nightmares, let us us know.
I think I do, actually.
I think you do too,
After
yeah.
thinking back quite a lot. Anyway, Martin, what else is on the way this morning?
I think Elaine needs a lie down after that. Still to come, she describes herself as a comedian, storyteller and absolute dose. Funny woman Aoife Dunn is here, and Grammy Award-winning Irish singer-songwriter Cian de Crow is joining us later, live in the studio. See you in a few minutes.